Welcome, I am Dr. Rajendra Vadnere. I welcome you in the third lecture on the course Skill Development for Employability. Let us have a quick recap of last couple of lectures. We have seen that when you want to be an employed person, you wish not only have the techniques which are necessary for the trade in which you want to get engaged, but you should also have the generic skills, certain skill without which you may not become readily employed. One of such employability skill is the team skill. You may be very good as an individual, but when it comes to working with the other people, you may be failing miserably. So, in order to build that team skill, we have this series of lecture. We have seen that we need to inculcate 7 habits which are mentioned in the famous book by Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Effective People. We have seen in the habit number 1, the habit number 1 is to be proactive. That means to respond to the script which you have prepared it for yourself. The second habit is to begin with the end in mind. That means you have to prepare a script. The script should be principle oriented, principle centered. That script is the first creation. Now we move on to the third habit. The third habit says that you should put the first thing first. Second habit was about the first creation. Putting first thing first is the second creation. It is the day by day execution of the principles, the script, the mission which you have worked on in the second habit. So, it is the habit of personal management. We can never underestimate the importance of management or execution of a plan. Your script may be very nice in a play or a movie, but when it comes to the direction, when it comes to management on the scale, when it comes to acting by the real people, if you do not do it properly, your entire project is not going to be successful. So, in order to be successful, in order to be effective, you need not only have the right mission, the right script, but you should also be able to execute it in a proper manner. So, this is what we are going to see in today's lecture. So, when we do the execution, what we need to do is, we already have a plan in front of us, we need to partition it. We have a mission in front of us, we need to really do the step by step procedure. We partition, we divide the problems into small parts, then we do the analysis of individual part, we put the parts in the proper sequence, and then we do setting of the targets, what is to be done in which order, what should be the deadlines for each of the sub parts and things like that. So, these are the nitty-gritties of the execution of a project. When we do that, we have to recognize the power of independent will. We have seen in our first lecture that we have 4 human gifts. They are self-awareness, imagination, conscience and independent will. Independent will says that we are free to choose, we are free to take our decisions are our own, we are responsible for our decision. So, independent will implies that we should inculcate the integrity in ourselves. That means, whatever we are talking, we should walk accordingly. Walking the talk, that is the phrase. That means, whatever we are saying, whatever we believe, our actions should be coherent with, it should be synonymous with our thoughts, our feelings and our beliefs. So, we have seen that there is a difference between leadership and management. Leadership decides what is the first thing. In our previous lecture, we were talking about the personal leadership. So, leadership is about what are the first things, that is what are the principles, what are the things which are important in the life, what is your mission of the life, and management is to put the first thing first, to sequence it properly, to execute in a proper manner. So, it is said that successful people have the habit of doing things which the people who are failures they do not like to do. In order to execute your mission, you may have to do those things which other people may not be liking to do. So, that is the difference between a effective person and a non-effective person, a successful person and a failure. So, the failure are the ordinary people, people like you and I, who like to do things which they like, who do things which they like most, whereas successful people may be doing those things which are important in their life, in the mission, in accomplishing the missions of their life, and those may be unpleasant things, but they do it anyway and they do it pleasantly, they do it cheerfully. Now, let us see about the time management. How people have been working on time management. People have put their thoughts in the concept of time management. Lots of schools of thoughts have emerged. We can say that there are 4 generations of time management. Just as there have been revolution in the society. Earlier people were hunter or gatherer, and then they invented agriculture, and then we became an agricultural society. That was the first revolution, the agrarian revolution. Then came the industrial revolution. People started doing things in much faster manner on a mass scale, and that changed the paradigm drastically. Then came the knowledge revolution, the present day's IT revolution, where we are mostly dealing with the knowledge, we are mostly dealing with the information, we are mostly dealing with the intangibles. The money we spent is not currency, the money we spent is on virtual manner. So, that revolution is the latest revolution. Similar to that, there have been generations of paradigm shifts in the concept of time management also. The first generation people used to take notes, they used to take minutes of the meetings, they used to prepare checklists. Then came the little bit, there was little bit modification to that one. Every generation takes the previous generation and adds up to it by something. So, second generation is the first generation, added to it are the concepts of or the tools of calendars or appointment books. So, in the second generation people started looking ahead, looking towards the future, what are going to be, how should I plan things in a proper manner, how to use the calendars and appointment books to visualize things in the future and to make appointments, so that things do not clash. So, that was the achievement of the second generation. Third generation took a step further. It was about prioritizing. What they started doing is attaching value to various activities, various projects, various parts. How you are going to spend your time is, you can attach a value to it and call it as a cost. Suppose you want to buy something, you have a number of product to select from. If everything is equal, but one cost is less than the other, since you are spending money, you will go for that particular cost. So, similarly you can attach various values to various processes, and you say that I will choose the processes which is least costly, which is going to cost least to the company. So, that way they started, it is a concept of artificial intelligence which they brought into the management, and when there are number of choices, the choice which costs the least to the company, it should be preferred. So, that concept was introduced in the third generation. Now, the fourth generation we are talking about is the generation which Stephen Covey is leading. He says that we do not do just like that, we have to keep the principle in front of us even when we are doing the prioritizing things. In fact, we do not manage time, we manage ourselves. We put the activities, we put ourselves and we manage ourselves. We put the activities in the time slots, and when we do that, we are not only managing time, we are managing ourselves. So, it is the fourth generation of time management which will be the focal point of today's discussion. Just as I said, we are not managing time, we are managing processes, we are managing activities. So, when we are talking about the processes and activities which we do day in and day out, we can classify these activities according to two attributes. One attribute is urgency, second attribute is importance. So, certain activities may be urgent, certain activities may not be urgent, certain activities may be important, certain other activities may not be important. So, which are the urgent things? Urgent things are time bound. Suppose I have to go to Chennai, maybe let us say 15 days time from now. It is imperative for me to do my reservation. If I do reservation just now, I have a better choice of the time schedule according to my convenience and things like that. But if I delay it by tomorrow, maybe certain of my choices will go off. If I do it day after tomorrow, probably I would have had very little choice, and if I delay it furthermore, maybe I will have no train which will take me to Chennai or something like that. So, that is something which is urgent, which has a time boundness in itself. So, those things which have time limit, which must be done in a earliest possible manner, they are the urgent things. Then there is an importance. Second attribute we are talking about is importance. Importance is something to do with our mission. If you ask about an activity, whether this activity will contribute, if I do it successfully, will it contribute to my mission statement, then that activity we will call it as an important activity. And if your answer is negative or does not matter, then this activity is not an important activity. So, this is how we define importance, and this is how we define the urgency. Urgent things make you react. Urgent things make you reactive, because you have to act, you have very less time, and as we were talking about in our first lecture about the space between stimulus and response, when you are dealing with the urgent situations, the space between stimulus and response is very much limited. So, you have very little response time to act to, and you are most likely going to act according to your script which other people have scripted for you. So, urgent activities mean danger zone. So, according to these two attributes, we can have four situations. One is urgent and important, second is urgent and not important, third is not urgent and important, fourth is not urgent and not important. So, these are the four areas which we are going to deal with. First, let us see the first, we will call it as, suppose you put in a on a chart, you can put you can put a cross and you can have four areas which this cross is going to define. So, those four areas we are going to call as the individual quadrant. So, first quadrant is urgent and important. Now, what are the activities which are urgent as well as important? Those activities may be crisis, something has come up, somebody's health is not good, immediately somebody has got a heart attack, immediately he must be shifted to the hospital. These things cannot wait. So, these are important and these are urgent. So, the examples of urgent and important activity, that is quadrant 1 activities, is crisis, things which have deadlines, things which are pressing problem, there is a strike in the organization, then those things must be dealt with in a very urgent manner. It is important because the company is losing its production. So, pressing problems, crisis, things with deadlines, these are the areas which are in the quadrant 1. Now, as I already said, that this is the most dangerous area, because it says it is important as well as it is urgent. They have done a survey with the top executives in the world, people working in Intel, Microsoft, and very high profile, high gaining, high value enterprises, and they surveyed the time schedule of their executives, and they found that they spend very little time in this domain, in this quadrant of urgent and important activities, which may be surprising to you, but they spend less than 5% time in this particular domain. Why do they do this? We will see. If you are most of the time you are doing the activities which are in the quadrant 1, that means you are always trying to do things which are very urgent, very important. You will be always on your toes, you will be always stressed up. That means it is going to have the result is that it takes its toll in terms of the stress, in terms of the depression, in terms of burnouts. You are always doing the crisis management. If you are always doing crisis management, there is something wrong with the organization which you are working on, or there is something wrong with your life. Maybe it is happening this way, that you keep on delaying things till it becomes urgent. This kind of phenomena is very much there in many of the organizations, that people keep on delaying things till it becomes urgent and important, and then they do urgent and important things. So, since they are working on the backlogs, and they take so much of time in their backlogs, that their backlogs never gets filled. So, they are always on their toes, they are always in the depressive mood, or there are certain people who are good in working in such scenarios. So, the companies keep on finding this person and keep on giving him the activities which must be done in time, which must be done in a proper time bound manner, which must be done in a good manner, so that the company does not have any bad problems. So, if that is happening, that means there is something wrong with the company. The company or the organization or the person should be spending least amount of time in this. If it is happening that you are always in this particular domain, you have to look back and see what is wrong with the way you are conducting your business. The second quadrant is not urgent but important. Now, this is the most beautiful quadrant of the 4. This is the best quadrant to work on, because you are doing things which are important. Though you are doing those things which are important, that means which is going to contribute most to your mission statement. That means those are the things which are going to lead you in your life. Those life goals which you have set, these are the activities you are doing, and these are not urgent. Since these are not urgent, you have plenty of time to work on, you have plenty of resources, you can have time to plan your resources, you have the time to do things in the best possible manner. So, this is the best quadrant to work on. This is the second quadrant. The examples are the preventive activities. These are the preventive activities. There is nothing wrong with the camera which I am facing, everything is working smoothly. But if I do certain thing, if I do the servicing for that particular camera or do the servicing of my vehicle, then next the vehicle going wrong in the middle of the road, you have reduced that possibility. So, preventive activities. PC, that means production control, which we have talked about in our production capability, production capacity, which we have talked in our first lecture. These are the areas, growing your goose, there is a golden goose which is giving golden egg on day in day out basis. If you take care of its health, that means you are doing those things which are not very urgent, but they are important. Relationship building, when you do, when you interact with people, which helps you build the relationship, this is not urgent thing. It is not that you must do it today itself, but they are important things, because if you do that, you have built up a good organization, you have built up a good circle of friendships, you have built up a good circle of your relations. Recognizing new opportunities, that is something which is not urgent, but it is important. What are the various areas in which the new opportunities are coming up, you do the survey, you do the study, in which area we can work on. So, if you do this kind of thing, then it is a second quadrant activity. It is important, but not urgent activity. Planning. Planning is something which you should do, as we saw in the previous lecture. We saw that you have to measure twice and cut once. That means you have to give lot of time in planning, and if you can give lot of time for planning only if you realize that it is not urgent and you realize that it is important. So, this second quadrant is the quadrant of proactivity. It is the, as I said, it is the best quadrant to be in. So, therefore, you must spend most of your time in your second quadrant. Those people who spend most of their time in second quadrant, how do they look like? What is the outcome of spending most of our time in second quadrant? The result will be that you have a vision. If you spend most of the time building relations, you spend most of the time in finding the various opportunities, you will have vision, you have a perspective, you will have discipline, you will have control on your life, and you will have a balance of the various roles which you play. As we saw in the last lecture also, and we are going to see in this particular lecture also, everybody spends their time in various roles. You are a husband, you are a spouse, you are a parent, you are an employee, you are a member of some community. So, those are various roles in which you work, and when you work on those various roles, you have certain goals for each of the role, you have certain objectives which you wish to achieve in that particular goal. So, when you have sufficient time and when you realize that these are the goals which I have put myself for the various roles I am going to play, then you will have a balance of the various activity. It should not happen that you are a very good professional, but you are very bad parent, or you are very bad spouse or something like that. So, if you have succeeded in a specific branch, a specific vertical, but you are not succeeded in other this thing, then you are not effective. So, in order to achieve the effectiveness, a balance is required, and we are going to see further in details in the particular how that balance is going to be achieved. Third quadrant is urgent, not important. Sometimes what happens? There is a phone call. Somebody is waiting for you in the lobby, and you will keep him waited. But suppose some phone call comes, you have to attend it because that ring irritates you. So, you attend the phone calls. So, those phone calls are urgent, because if you do not take that phone call, it will keep on irritating you. You take it, but many of the time it is not. It is some survey thing or something like that, in which you may not be interested. So, it has taken some of your time. Maybe something comes up which is lucrative to begin with, but at the end you realize that it is not that lucrative, or that it is not going to contribute to the goal of your mission. So, those kind of phone calls, they are urgent, you have to take it, but they may not be important. There are interruptions, something comes up, there are sometimes minor health problems or things like that, where it is important, because if you do not attend to it, your health is very important that way. But if you had taken preventive measures, probably this kind of thing could have been avoided. So, interruptions, some mails, some reports, some meetings, and popular activities, these are the examples of urgent, not important activities. If you spend, those people who spend most of their times in urgent, not important activities, what is the result of doing these activities? The result is that you have a very short term focus. I am talking to you, immediately some phone call comes, I have lost my balance, I have lost my focus, I have lost my concentration. So, it cuts short your focus, it makes you deal with the crisis management, it loses the productivity, because if people are not working in continuous basis, their productivity will not be there. So, it loses the productivity. In terms of relationship, suppose you build up relationship for a very short time, on an urgent basis, but you do not give sufficient time to it, then that kind of relationship will be a shallow relationship. So, these are the drawbacks, or these are the outcomes of working most of the time on the urgent but not important things. Fourth quadrant is not urgent and not important. These the examples of this quadrant is the time wasters, the trivia, the pleasant activities. It is not necessary when I am saying this is the best quadrant, this is not best quadrant, things like that. It does not mean that you do not spend time and at all on these activities. Sometimes it is also good to for your sake to spend some time on such activities. Suppose you go to see a movie, probably this movie is not going to take you further in your mission statement, but it is going to be a relaxer. But there are certain time wasters. Some people come, they take much of your time, and though you do those activities in search of something which are not important, this is not important, but you do it anyway. If you are doing most of your time in such activities about which are not important and not urgent, then most likely you are an unemployed person, or you are a person who is in search of the job or something like that. The people who do not have much of the self worth, they may be spending much of their time in these things. I am doing something, I know I do not have anything else to do, and I am doing it because I do not have much of the important things to do. That is why I am doing it. If this is the case, then it is not contributing, it is not giving me the positive feedback. It does not give me the feedback that I am doing something worthwhile, and the result will be, it will be an irresponsible, it may lead to totally irresponsible behavior, loss of self esteem, dependence on the others. Because you are not capable of doing your things yourself, you are delegating it to some other people, or you are depending on other people to do it. So, these are the four quadrant which we have seen. You may spend some time in quadrant 3 or quadrant 4 also. As I said, it is not that these are totally prohibitive. You should not watch the movie, you should not listen to songs, or listen to engage into trivias, but most of the time should be spent on the second quadrant. If you want to spend most of the time in the second quadrant, that means you have to grow your second quadrant at the cost of quadrant 1 and quadrant 3. That means you have to, there are going to be certain pressing problems which are going to come to you, which may not be leading to your fulfillment of your goal, and you will have to say no to those activities. So, you have to listen, you have to inculcate the skill of saying no. You can either flatly say no, I am not going to do it because I do not want to do it because I do not want to do it, things like that. Very curtly you can say it, or you can say it in a polite manner, or you can find some area in which you really want to work, and you can give the feedback to the person who is requesting it, and you can tell them that these are the activities I am currently engaged in. One incident which is mentioned in the book is that the author, he was the chairman of a society, and they happened to engage a person who was very good, who was very disciplined, who was very good in work. So, he asked him to do certain thing that I want, this is the area I want to work on, kindly do it for me. This is what the author told that particular new person. That new person, what he did, he grabbed the hand of the author and he took it to his office, and he showed that this is, see what I am doing currently, and he showed a board which was full of various charts, various activities, various projects which he wanted to undertake. All the deadlines were clearly given, what he wanted to do it, why he wanted to do, all these things were very clearly mentioned over there. The chart itself was self-explanatory. He told him that these are the various 5-6 activities I am working on, and I really do wish to work with you, I really care for you. So, just tell me which of the area if I have to work on your project, I will have to skip one of the or more of these projects. Kindly tell me which of these projects I should drop. So, he left the onus on the author. So, he had to tell him that no, don't do this. How will he have the heart to say, don't do this, do my thing. So, he backed off. So, you can say no in a very positive manner, because you are putting the other person on your shoes and you are saying, take decision on my behalf. These are the various projects which are going to lead to the betterment of the society. If I do your job, I may have to do injustice to these areas. So, put yourself in my shoes and take the decision. So, this is one way of doing. You have to say no to various activities. You have to find out. You have to have the wisdom to find which is right, which is not right, which is less right, which is more right. Accordingly, you put the first thing first. Now, if you want to build this thing in a systematic manner, if you want to work on our life in a systematic manner, then we may develop a tool for ourselves. When we develop the tool for ourselves, it may be in a form of a spreadsheet or a worksheet. It may have the following. It has been given in the book. One chart is given in which you can put yourself in the various roles. You have to define the various goals for each of the role and how this goal would be achieved by the various activities which you are planning on a weekly basis. And if once you plan it on the weekly basis, how will you translate them into your daily routine. These are there is a chart or there is a way of working, way of thinking which has been mentioned in the book, and that is called as the tool for the second quadrant lifestyle. It meets the following 6 criteria. It is coherent. That means it keeps the broad vision which you have put yourself for your life in mind. So, whenever you look at the chart, you know this is the goal of my life, and that goal, that vision is going to be translated through various activities. It balances your various roles. You are a husband, you are a wife, you are a parent, you are daughter-in-law of somebody, or things like that. You have your family responsibility, family roles, and you have your job responsibility and job roles. So, how those roles are going to be balanced, that particular thing, if you, because the chart says that you define various roles and what are your goals and how this goal will it be, whenever you do plan the activities for the week or for the month, then you have to, what are the various roles, are you doing something for that particular role, you are not doing it, that is a conscious decision you have to take. So, it balances your various roles in the harmony to your other goals. It has the second quadrant focus, that means it encourages the second quadrant act. You have to ask yourself whether I am doing most of the time the second quadrant activity or not. So, it has a focus on the second quadrant. It has a people's direction dimension. People are not objects. We manage people, but we don't manage the people just like we manage any other objects. So, that harmony or that sameness is there in this particular tool. It is flexible. The tool is a servant, it is not a master. Whenever you use this tool, you have to keep in mind that there should be some flexibility. If something has happened which requires more of your attention, suppose you had given 10 minutes time to your parent and you wanted to do something for your parents for 10 minutes time, but if it so happens that there are certain emotional issues and it takes 30 minutes rather than 10 minutes, then you should be flexible towards that activity also. You keep in mind that it is your servant and not your master. Then it is portable. It has to be portable so that you can take it, you can carry it around easily. So, these are the various features which are there in the tool which they have developed. So, you want to be a manager who does most of the activities in the second quadrant. So, how to be a second quadrant self manager? In order to do that, you have already defined in the second habit various roles and various goals in which you engage. So, you set goals for each of the role. Then you schedule time to meet those goals, because you have to, unless you give time to each of the goal, you will not be achieving anything. So, in order to achieve something, you have to schedule some activities and you have to use that chart to schedule your activities accordingly. Then you plan on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. So, you adapt daily, you look at the chart on a daily basis and you see how I am doing on daily basis, how am I progressing to achieve the roles, or rather the goals for my various roles. So, you plan daily, you adapt daily, you dynamically change your style on a daily basis. You have to give appropriate time for sharpening the saw. There is a mention of sharpening the saw, that is a seventh habit of sharpening the saw, that is certain activities like exercise, meditation, introspection, learning, entertainment. These are the things which keeps you alive, which keeps you young. So, these activities should also be given some time. Not only your roles and goals must occupy all your time, but as I said, it may be quadrant 3 activity. You may call it as a quadrant 3 activity, or you may call it as a quadrant 2 activity, but those activities which relax you, those activities should also have some time in your manager. We have to advance into the fourth generation. As we said, there are 4 generations of time management. Fourth generation means that you have to be principle centered, you should be directed by your conscience, you should define your unique missions, values and goals, and you have to balance the various roles in which you play, and you should have a perspective on the weekly planning. That means, instead of, if you do the planning on a weekly basis and if you do the planning on a daily basis, you do the planning on a weekly basis, but you see your progress on a daily basis. This is the crux of the thing. When you do the planning on a weekly basis, then you have a wider perspective. If you do planning only the day to day basis, that means you only have a day in your life. You are thinking, today is the day, this is what I am going to do today, but you lose then the wider perspective. You may tend to forget things which you have for maybe later part of the day, and you may forget those activities altogether, and probably you may lose something. So, when you have the weekly planning, you have wider perspective in comparison to the daily perspective. Another area which is another concept is the concept of delegation. Certain activities you can delegate it to other people. That means, you don't do it yourself, you leave it to other people. So, that this concept is called delegation. When you do that, you are enhancing the P by PC, that means P means product, PC means production capacity. That concept we have seen in our very first lecture. So, that P by PC balance is enhanced when you do the delegation. So, when you delegate to the people, it enhances your effectiveness, because you have more time to other activities which you only can do, which only you can do in a best possible manner, and which is something which is going to lead to the advancement of your goal. When you delegate things, you get people trained in those activities. For example, suppose some activity I can do in a very good manner, but it is not very time does not have much of the time constraint, then I can delegate it to you and you can do it. Maybe you will take more time than in comparison to me, maybe you will do it in less meticulous manner, less precise manner, but if it is good enough, or if I can increase your potential, probably I am building my team, I am building a good person, a good professional in the other people. So, when you delegate, other people also get trained, their capacity, their production capacity increases, and the production capacity of the organization as a whole increases when we do the delegation. When you do the work for yourself, you are enhancing the product. When I say that I don't want to delegate, I am leaving it to myself, I am going to do it myself, that means I have a focus on the production. I don't have the focus on the production capacity, I have the focus on production. I will be doing, suppose in one day I can do a job, let us say that of writing a book. Let us say I can write 10 pages in a day, then suppose I delegate it to equally capable people, maybe if there are 10 such people, we will have 100 pages in a day. So, that way, but it is like an investment in people. In the beginning you are losing, but in the long run you may be getting. So, it is basically moving the fulcrum. Earlier I was getting 10 pages, now I am just like in a lever. Suppose I move the fulcrum further ahead, I will be with the same efforts, I will be lifting more heavier objects. So, but it is something which is to be seen in the right perspective. And also in an Indian context or the context of various organization, we should also see it this way. The delegation should not be a negative. It shouldn't happen that we are leaving, we are not being responsible. I am given some job, I say no, I don't want to do it, let somebody else do it, and that could be a negative also in one way. We should not be getting away, escaping from our responsibility. We should have our responsibility. We should realize that the job has to be done, must be done, may not be by me, maybe by somebody else. When we talk about the delegation, it is within the organization, within the same hierarchy, that a higher up is delegating his job to a subordinate person. There are two kinds of delegations. One is he calls it as a go for delegation. Go for means go for this, go for that, do this, do that, tell me when you have done. So, this is the kind of approach which we call as the go for delegation. It is micromanaging. Suppose I give you some job and I sit on your neck, I am breathing on your shoulder and I am saying, oh no, you are not doing it properly, no, this is not the way it is to be done, no, this is you made a wrong mistake again. Then I am doing go for delegation, that means I am just micromanaging everything on my part. That way I have neither increased the production nor I have increased the production capacity. So, this is the micromanagement. This is the kind of management which is prevalent in many of the mediocre organizations, where the people nobody has the authority, everybody looks for the higher up or the highest up for the authorities, and it is called as the I am going to ask, I will ask my superior and then tell you. Any phone call comes, the person does not know anything for sure, because the policies of the management are not clear. He will say, I have to ask other people, I have to ask my superior and then I will tell you. That means he has just postponed the activity which could have been done in that particular moment itself. So, it is basically the philosophy or the methodology of micromanagement. Other management is called as the stewardship delegation. The focus is on result and not on the method. I want this result, how you do it, so long as you are doing it in a legal manner, I do not care. Do it and finish it, forget it. Whether you have done it within the time you have done it, I am happy about it. So, this is the stewardship delegation. In order to do this, you have to take certain care. You have to have, everybody should have a very clear understanding of the desired outcome, desired result. I should know when I delegate to my subordinate, this activity has to be done. I should very clearly state what is it that I want it, how is it going to be used in the final part, how the final picture is going to be. So, as we saw in our previous lecture, the vision is shared by the leader and the led. The leadership as well as the people who are working in the subordinate, they have the same vision, they have the same thing which they are seeing. As I in previous lecture I talked about the cathedral being built. So, if everybody sees the cathedral being built, probably they would be doing a better job. So, everybody who is to whom the activities has been delegated, they must share the same vision, then they would be doing the same thing. Otherwise, at the end the boss is going to say this is not what I wanted. So, the desired outcome must be very clear, very clearly stated, very clearly understood by everybody. Then the guideline within which it is to be operated should be very clearly mentioned. It is not necessary that you tell him exactly which method you use, but within what parameter you have to use, within what arena, within what sets of rules you are going to operate, that should be clearly mentioned. Then certain resources, if they are required, money, time, the resources of the other people, some expertise, consultancy, those should be made available. If you do not have, if the subordinate does not have that kind of resources, he will not be able to do the job in a faithful manner. Then accountancy, the accountability against the set parameter should be set. You have to say that you are successful if you meet this particular thing. If these many mistakes are there, these many mistakes are maybe allowed or maybe tolerated, but not more than that. Whenever a person does a job in a workshop, some tolerance is mentioned, that within 0.5 micron it should be done, within 1 micron it should be done within 1 millimeter or something like that. So, if you are within that particular set targets, I accept it, but if you do it more than that, I am going to reject your task. So, then parameters are set. How we are going to judge the quality is set, clearly mentioned and understood by everybody. And then accountability, that I will hold you responsible if you do not do this job in this particular time frame or this particular criteria of the task, then only I will accept it, otherwise you will be held responsible. So, accountability is a important concept. Consequences, if the job is not done in a particular manner, what are going to be the consequences? That should be clearly understood and mentioned, and they should be adhered to by all the people. There is an example which he has given about he had a lawn in his bungalow. There was a lawn which was not as green as his neighbors. So, he took his son, he said, see, this is the lawn, this is their lawn, it is green, this is our lawn, it is not green. Do anything what you want to do, in 3 months time we should see to it that our lawn is green. Do not paint it green, do not use a green color and paint it. This is something which I am not going to allow you. You have to use the manure, you have to use the right kind of seeds or whatever resources which you want to use, you use it, and after 3 months I am going to see whether this thing is done properly or not. And then if the things do not happen, what is going to happen? Everything was told, and he was monitoring it. In the process of building this particular kind of activity, you develop the trust. Once you do things in a proper manner, the subordinate gets the trust of his superior, and this kind of trust building is there. Then there is also a concept of patience, which the superior should have, or the subordinate should also expect and should also adhere to, is the concept of patience. So, this is the concept of stewardship delegation. It is in very great detail, it has been mentioned in the book. Now, let us come to the second quadrant again, second quadrant paradigm. I am not going to discuss what is mentioned under this heading of second quadrant paradigm. I leave it to you, you can go and read it. I am not going to discuss further or elaborate upon it. It is not very complicated or things like that, but let me tell you one story which is mentioned in some other book or some other product of Stephen Covey's organization, there was a seminar on time management. In that seminar, what they do was they brought a bucket in front of a table, and there were some stones, some big stones, some small stones, some sand, water. These everything were brought in front of all the delegates were sitting, all the participants were sitting, and they brought a table in front of them, and they said, see, everybody can see this bucket is empty. The bucket was sort of transparent bucket, plastic bucket. Yes, everybody said, this is empty. So what I am going to do is I am going to put the big stones in that one. So they put the big stones in the bucket, and then the bucket was sort of full. Then they asked the participants, is it full? Everybody say, yes, yes, it is full. No, no, it is not full. So he brought the smaller stones, and they shook it, and they put the stones, and then they shake it. So what happens is that the stone settles in that particular, the smaller stone also gets settled, and more stones could be accommodated. Then they said that they asked the participant, is it full now? Now the participants were wiser. They said, no, 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 you can also put some sand. So they brought the sands and they put over there, and again they shook it. So lot of all the empty space between the small stones and the big stones got filled up with the sand. Then they said, is it now full? Then everybody looked at the water. Okay, this water is also there. So whatever is the little space between the sands, they again poured some water, and then now the entire thing was totally full. Now there was nothing left. Then they asked, is it full now? They said, yes, it is full. Now the important question is, what is the moral of the story? What is the moral of the story of this particular exercise? Then all the participants in the unison, they said, since the seminar was on time management, they said, okay, the bucket is like time and the stones are like activities. So we can fill the time with the larger activities first, and whatever is the gap which remains, we will put smaller activities. And if there are still sharper, smaller time gap, we should have in our mind what are the big activities, what are the smaller activities, which are micro activities, what various activities we can put, and we can fill our time in the most compact manner, in the most efficient manner. This is the moral of the story. Everybody said it, elaborated in all kind of vocal manner. Then the resource person said, no, this is not the moral of the story. And they quizzed, they asked, why this is not the moral of the story? What is then the moral of the story? He said, the moral of the story is that you have to lift the stones and put them into the bucket. This is the moral of the story. Moral of the story is not that you can fill your time with larger activities and the smaller activity. The moral of the story is that you have to put the activities in place, then only the bucket gets filled when the stones are fitted into it. So the obvious answer is not the correct answer, or is not the one which has the deeper meaning. The deeper meaning is that we should not be just managing our time, we should be managing our time by putting the right things in the right place. By right thing, what we mean is those activities which are important, those activities which are going to take you further in the mission of your life. So you have to put those activities consciously, with very conscious effort you have to put it. When you put the bigger stone, you have to do lot of work, you have to do lot of energy has to be put into this thing, then only you will be able to do it. So this is basically the moral of the story. It is not what meets the eye, but it is the subtle realities of the things. Now it is coming to an end, and towards the end I am summarizing what we have just done in this particular lecture. In this session, we saw that doing the right thing, this habit is about doing the right thing in the right manner, in the right way. Our focus should be on urgent and important activities, that is the second quadrant activities. The second quadrant is about being proactive, balancing the various roles and goals, delegations, patience and having trust. In the next session, we are going to learn the fourth habit, the habit of think win-win. Till then, thank you and goodbye.